Hello and welcome to today's episode of Rawkode Live. I am your host, David Flanagan. Today we are taking a look at Waypoint from HashiCorp, a tool to build, deploy and release software. Now, before we get into that, there's a little bit of housekeeping. First, please subscribe to this channel and tick the little bell button to get alerts for all new episodes of Rawkode Live. We're going to be exploring the vast cloud native landscape together, learning along the way and trying to make all of this mess a little bit easier. So subscribe and join us. We also have a Discord server available at rawkode.chat. So if you want to come and chat with 500 other cloud native and Kubernetes people, then come and say hello. I look forward to meeting you. And also we have a membership program on the Rawkode Academy, which gets you access to exclusive courses. Check that out. If you have any questions, jump into the Discord. All right, now to guide us on our Waypoint journey today, I am joined by HashiCorp developer advocate, Taylor Dolezal. Hey man, how's it going?
Good. Happy to be here this morning, evening, afternoon. Just a $sign time zone, I think, is pretty much the time it is, right?
There's no time zones on the internet, right?
Exactly. It's just we're just here, as I think how it is. Happy to be here today. So happy to meet all of you. If you have any questions during these sessions, please feel free to throw comments in the chat. Be more than happy to expand upon those answers, get things to kind of help illuminate on these concepts and these topics. Always fun to have the opportunity to do so. My name is Taylor Dolezal. Like David said, I am a developer advocate at HashiCorp. And I work mostly with infrastructure workflows, application delivery, developer experience. Basically, if there's something that we want to do in the cloud and there's not an easy or straightforward way to do it, let's solve it. Let's do that together. If you want to see more examples on that front, that's something I love taking the time to do, meeting with people on calls and just kind of really digging into what the problem is. What's the problem that we're trying to solve here is typically how I like to try to frame things. So have a lot of fun working at HashiCorp. Really always excited to work in the cloud and see what everybody else is working on.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I think we all heard it. You just offered to fix everybody's cloud problems. So
darn it, I did, didn't I? My calendar's all filled up.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
You're going to have to open up some more office hours, I think, now. But okay, so thank you for that introduction. That's great. It's nice to learn a little bit more about you. Now, why don't you, for the people that are not aware, share a little bit about Waypoint? What is
Absolutely. it? So great question. It's almost like you've been practicing that one. I'd say, so what Waypoint is really, when I talk with people about it, people that have had the chance to take a look at it might have kind of framed it as a CI/CD tool. And you're right, though it's so much more. Waypoint helps build, deploy, and release your applications, your containerized applications. And so when it comes to each of those concerns, you have tools like Flux, you have tools like Argo, and those are mostly focused on the release, deploy and release factors of that workflow. When it comes to build, I know that I haven't taken a look at Argo. I need to. I've taken a look at Flux and have seen that they're starting to add in that build capability. And to me, that checks all the boxes when it comes to actually getting an application, sharing an application with the world or showing people what you're working on. So that's what Waypoint seeks to do, is just to make all of those steps easier. If you're trying to deploy to Kubernetes or Nomad or Lambda or ECS, you have, the goal is to have one platform to be able to do that and to make it easy for operators to actually set that up and give teams the ability to choose what workflow works best for them. Now, personally, I really like working in the CLI, but it doesn't hurt to have a nice UI to be able to go and look at things, make sure everything is as you expect it to be, all in one place. You can do that, again, with the CLI, but having that UI, that single pane of glass, the legendary, mythical single pane of glass to see everything that is important to you is quite helpful. So that's what Waypoint is. Really, the short answer is, TLDR is that it's a lot of things. But mostly focusing on helping people solve problems, helping people deploy their applications and releasing them to the world. There are two big workflows to kind of help better illuminate. what Waypoint does is, say you're a developer and you haven't really, you've heard about this Docker thing, you've heard about containerization, and you're just like, this is just another thing to learn. It's not something that's really gripping to you. Some people love to write Docker files, myself included, but say that's not your that's not your passion. That's something that Waypoint really helps with in the build step, where if you have an application that has a package manager, say it's a Go app, a Ruby app, a JavaScript application, and you have a package manager, what Waypoint uses is cloud native build packs, so you don't even have to have a Docker file, and you can start building right away. Now, it's not going to be, a 1 kilobyte image or anything like that. It's not going to be as reduced in size as you might want, but it's going to be a starting place, right? And kind of give you that ability to deploy your stuff and get an example of what it looks like in the wild, in the cloud. If you do have a Docker file, you can bring that with you. You can build for that. And then when it comes to releasing to each of these platforms, you no longer have to rely on that bash script or that wild, we do deploys a little bit differently here, as you might hear at just about every company that you work at. So really just kind of hoping to unify that workflow and make it easy for people to switch out their platforms, to switch out their build processes. I think that's really where the power of Waypoint shows, frankly.
All right, awesome. Lots of great context there. I'm going to try and take everything you just said there and summarize it as one line. There's my mission, right? So, would it be fair to say that Waypoint is to software what Terraform is to infrastructure?
Exactly. Wonderful summation. Waypoint has this concept of plugins, and then you see that with providers in Terraform. So whether you're deploying to Kubernetes or to Lambda, you are working with these different contexts and these different plugins.
Okay, so one would use one would use Terraform to spin up some VMs or some bare metal, a Kubernetes cluster. Then they hook in Waypoint, and it will deploy their application to that platform. What about the continuous integration stage? Is that something that Waypoint handles as well? I think you kind of maybe said yes there with the Docker file bit. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's what's really nice is that it's at the current point in time, Waypoint doesn't have that capability to act as an Argo, as a Flux type of platform just yet. That's something that we're talking about with the team, and so I'm really invested in kind of what those workflows will look like. Right now, it's I do have a demo today that'll kind of like showcase what it is to deploy a Lambda application when you get that set up with GitOps, and if you were to make a change and kind of push that forward. So that's quite cool. So I'll be showing that today and kind of like what that workflow looks like. But when it comes to the piece that's missing there is authentication and tighter integration with Kubernetes. So being able to Waypoint has a server and then it has a runner in its architecture. I'll also share out a link on that front too, as to how you can better understand Waypoint's architecture. But that's really cool to see working and running, and could talk for a very long time about it. It's quite nifty.
All right. Well, you've teased the demo a few times now, so why don't we get your screen shared? Let's head over, and I'll just keep throwing questions at you as we move through.
Fantastic. All right. So you should see my browser window. It's got my homepage loaded on it for today. So what I'm going to be doing today is quite a few things. I don't have 2 demos for you. I've got 3 demos for you. So we'll do a hat trick of demos. Fingers crossed. These are all live. So fingers crossed everything goes swimmingly. So we'll get right into it. The repository I'm going to be working from today is on my username. I can share these out a little bit later. My Waypoint GitOps repository. In here, I've got some Terraform. I do have to backport some things, so I'm actually going to go ahead and set up an EKS cluster using this repository. I've updated this EKS in action repository with examples for Terraform 1.0, as well as added KMS keys and just kind of made it a little bit easier debugging experience for people that want to kind of have that experience, as well as add dependabot so I can tell when things are out of date, which pretty helpful, I'd say. All right, so I'm going to jump into this Waypoint GitOps repository here, but first let me kick off this I'll just run that off to the side. So I'll go ahead and run you want to know something? Probably would help to see this, right?
Okay. Yeah, I was about to ask.
always a plus. Okay. Terraform init. All right. I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. Terraform. I've already done plans and applies with this, so I have a high confidence this is going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and do what I call Terraform YOLO, which is going to be this auto approve appended here. People, please don't do this in production. I'm a trained professional, so mistakes are okay. So I'll drag this shell off to the side and kind of let that go. And it is off to the races. Awesome. Okay, I'll bump this up as well. So let's get started. So I'm going to be starting from scratch today. We're going to be installing the Waypoint server and showcasing the entire workflow from zero to Waypoint with production applications. Granted, I don't think that any of these need a fully staffed team to administrate or operate, but who knows? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So first, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to install Waypoint. So Waypoint, I'll actually go back to my browser. I'm on a Mac machine, and one of the easiest ways to get started with Waypoint is to just use brew. You can tap HashiCorp's tap, where we maintain and release all of our software, and then you can just install it using these instructions here. We do support ARM. We do support a whole bunch of other builds. Please feel free to refer to the downloads page, and we've got some guidance for you there. Also, learn.hashicorp.com has some pretty good walkthroughs of this as well. Or if you're hitting a snag, please at me. Let's work through that. So good news is I already did that, kind of like the pulling out the cake from underneath the countertop. I've already done that. I've already gotten Waypoint installed. So if we do a Waypoint version here, we'll see that Waypoint 05 is here. We're getting an error when showing the server, as is expected. We don't have that set up just yet. I've neglected to say, too, that Waypoint 05 just came out yesterday. So you'll see a few of the new features in here. All of these demos kind of focus on 04 functionality, but don't fret. We've got some 05 niceness in here, some 05 sparkle in here that we'll be walking through. Cool. So how do we install Waypoint? So we install Waypoint by doing this. So we want to just Waypoint install. We want to define the platform that we're going to install Waypoint on. Today, we're going to install on 2 platforms. So while I'm spinning up Kubernetes on the side, right now, I'm just going to run this in Docker just to give you an idea of how to install it locally. There are some features that you won't get when you install Waypoint locally on your machine, and I'll get into that here in just a little bit. All right, so let's go ahead and get this installed. And this won't take too long to get done, but really straightforward. It's nice to be able to have this kind of experience and not have to mess around with configuration, things like that. It's nice and simple. So we can see that Waypoint's been installed. It's been configured. Let's load up that UI. So if I type in, or let's do a version here, and then now we'll see both the CLI and that server are the versions that we want to see. Let's say that we want to take a look at the UI. So how do we do that? The UI is backed by a token system. Waypoint 05 released this capability to integrate with OpenID Connect. So if you want to use GitLab, if you want to use Google, you have the option to do that and then invite users that way. We're not going to get into that today. We're just going to authenticate here and use that token system. So you'll see this is connecting over HTTPS. So we are almost secure as can be on localhost. That's why we're getting this alert. So we're just going to go ahead and proceed. This is as expected. So great. We have installed the Waypoint server. Now, as of, I think it was Waypoint 03, we had this capability of runners within Waypoint. So not only when you install your server, you also get one runner. So what that does is it handles things like handling runs and configurations and things in the back end. That's going to be crucial for our GitOps workflow that we're going to work with today. All right, so we've installed Waypoint server, and now we can actually take this for a spin and actually get an application deployed. So me go ahead and set this up side by side. And let me also bump this up just a little bit too. Okay, so you'll see we have a few directories here. So these are our demos. These are in fact our demos. Let's kick things off with the GitOps demo. So the way that Waypoint works is that you can run different commands in Waypoint, obviously. The first one that we're going to want to run is init. This is going to initialize our project, and then you actually don't have to refresh this. In real time, it will appear. It takes just a second, and there it is. So we have that loaded, and we're good to go. We could run Waypoint up, and then this would go ahead and install just about everything that we need for this demo. So what is this, though? Let's actually learn about what we're going to deploy before we go ahead and do that. So let's jump in here into GitOps. And apologies, I'll bump this up. All right, and then let's use some. My goodness, I never remember my hotkeys when it matters. There it is. Okay, and then let's set the language mode. Let's just do Terraform because HCL is fun. JSON would be fine, but HCL is better colors. So what are we doing here? So we define the project name GitOps because that's what we're going to showcase is the GitOps workflow in this demo. So in this application stanza, we'll see that we have a build step. Great. We're going to be using Docker to build out this image. Inside of this build stanza, we have a registry, and we're going to be using AWS's ECR, the Elastic Container Registry, because when we deploy to Lambda, that is all that we are allowed to use from Amazon's guidelines. So wouldn't recommend this in production, setting the tag to latest, but Waypoint does have the capability. There are stubs that you can put in so you can get like a SHA value. You can iterate Waypoint 0 variables, and so you can kind of define some other things if you kind of want to decorate this a little bit better or fill this in with a little bit more certainty. Again, definitely don't recommend latest for anything unless you like puzzles, escape rooms, and the like, or 3 a.m. calls. Those are I'm not a fan of many of those things, but mostly the last one. Escape rooms are fun. Awesome. Next is our deploy step. So deploy and release sound similar, but they are in fact different. So what does that mean? Deploy this stanza, we specify which plugin we want to use within Waypoint. So we're going to be using Lambda, and we're deploying to the US West 2 region. I live in Los Angeles, California, so this is closer to me. A little bit better latency time. We could get really crazy and use local availability zones, but haven't gotten there just yet. Lastly, we specify that for the release, so that's deploying. That's actually pushing our image onto our application onto the platform of our choice, in this case, Lambda. But how do we actually tell Amazon, let's shift to that new version? Say I have 3 versions, I want to go from 2 to 3. That final piece release is actually going to specify that we need to shift traffic over. And so that is everything today. Let's go ahead and take a look at our actual application that we're deploying today. This is a very simple Ruby application. Apologies for all the you need to update your system. That's try to do that just about every 5 minutes, but clearly I failed. So this is a pretty simple application. We can see that this is just handling we're going to be making a call. This is going to return very, very simple, straightforward HTML. And we can see it's going to say happy day ending in Y name. So we could probably make that a little bit more specific too, but we'll go ahead and handle that after we get this deployed. That's a feature request we'll get from our stakeholders. Let's find out. So that's the application. We do have a Docker file for this as well, so we're not going to be using those cloud native build packs to craft this image. So this is again pretty straightforward. Feel free to ask any questions on these fronts if you have time. Instead of calling Waypoint up and actually running this manually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use that GitOps workflow right out of the gate. So we've initialized our project, which is necessary. You can't. You could set this project up completely within the UI, but I like having that Waypoint configuration file because it's a declarative state when working with any kind of operations or deployments, declarative state to me is just something that's really important to have, because then we know what we're looking to expect. Awesome. So let's jump in here into GitOps. Let's actually manage this through the UI just to kind of get an idea of all the fields available. You can do this through the CLI, but for demo's sake, it's a little bit easier to walk through when we've got a UI. So you can see here the input variables as one of the new features of 0.5. We won't walk through that today. All right. So we have our repository here. I'm just going to go ahead and grab this HTTP endpoint from GitHub, and we can put that in here. This git ref, we could use head, but I'm just going to go ahead and use main. Let's just push to main. I think that's how people do deploys now, right? Sounds safe. And then we're going to want to specify which actual path that we're going to want to look at. This demo is kind of a mono repo, so we have different folders for different demos. So I'm going to go ahead and specify that we want to look inside of the GitOps folder. And then we're not going to use any authentication. I know that sounds risky, but this is a public repository, so we should be safe on that front. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn on automated sync so that as changes happen, they actually get pushed to our deployment platform. So I know that was a lot. I know that was a lot to listen to, a lot to see. Let's see if everything is working as we expect. So the nice thing about Waypoint is that we can actually jump into this build and kind of get some telemetry on what's happening and some different logs. So here in a little bit, this build is already kicking off. I didn't instruct this to happen. Because we're using that GitOps workflow, this is something that kicks off initially. So this will take a little bit. I'm more than happy to answer your questions at this time, but this will probably take like a minute or two to actually spin everything up, build, push the repository, deploy the application, and then we can actually go ahead and test it and push some changes to it.
Yeah. Can we just clarify the difference between deploy and release again? Like, I'm not sure I got
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. So if you have an image and you want to get it onto your platform of choice, so in this example, we're pushing to Amazon Lambda. Oh, there was actually one thing I forgot to do. I'll go ahead and do that in the background. That is, we have that Waypoint runner that I talked about, but it needs authentication to AWS to actually carry forth these things. So I'm going to go ahead and set that configuration. I'm going to go do so in a different terminal, just due to some sensitive credentials there. So I'll go ahead and handle that, and then we'll get this spun up, and then it will actually kind of start to kick around and get things pushed. So what are the differences between deploy and release? We have our platform of choice. So say that we have an image, a container image, and we want to push to Kubernetes. The deploy step for that would essentially be the kube control apply. It's actually pushing that image and that deployment to your platform of choice. And then with releases, that's deciding where you want to route your endpoint to which version of your application. So the deployment is really just kind of a push operation or setting things up, making sure everything is staged appropriately. And then, you could almost think of it as GitHub branches. You've pushed up your code and everything like that. And then the release step is actually pointing which is my default one that I'm going to use for these operations. Is kind of what's going on there. Does that make more sense?
A little bit, I think so. Yeah, I'm just trying to kind of work it in my head of what I was doing. Does that mean that Waypoint and now or in the future will have kind of built-in primitives to do canary-style deployments, or does that come down to the platform of choice that we're actually deploying to?
My favorite answer: it depends. So it is a little bit of both, honestly. So as long as your platform of choice it allows for that to happen, then you're going to be able to do so. I think that's the niceness of Waypoint, is that we can kind of try to think about different ways that we might be able to enable that. So that might be something that either that we handle more of on the Waypoint side, but if there is a platform, if that platform supports that, then that's going to be pretty straightforward and pretty easy to do.
Yeah. So if I want to update my DNS on a deployment, I would do that in the release step?
Exactly. So inside of here, what this is with Lambda, I think I'll be able to show you with this example after I get all the credentials set up. Lambda is going to kind of keep track of all the versions that I push, and so with release, I could actually shift back. So if I've deployed, a new title for the web page, it's just going to default to the latest release. But if there's, let's say, like, oh no, I can't, I made a huge bug. This is not what I wanted at all. I'm going to be able to actually shift back using that with Waypoint, which is quite nice.
Okay. And is there any difference between running Waypoint up and what you've done through the UI?
Absolutely. In this example with GitOps, it's kind of it's tracking the repository itself and then facilitating all of those operations. So I actually didn't need to run Waypoint up. What the runner is doing, what the GitOps workflow is doing, is essentially running up. And everything in the UI should map to that same type of CLI workflow for sure.
Okay. So I'm trying to build correlations in my head now. I want to understand where Waypoint is. Can I think of it as like GitHub Actions or Jenkins? Like, is it a traditional build system with some extra stuff on top, or is it something else that has the build bit kind of in? I know that's a weird question, but hopefully it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It does encompass quite a few things, honestly. It is a little bit more general, and I think that's one thing that is a question I typically get asked, is that, is this just CI/CD? Is it just this thing? Really, it's trying to tie all of the things together when it comes to application deployments and releases and versioning and builds, and kind of like make it all a platform. Very like almost like the Heroku effect, if you will. Kind of you would start with your Ruby application, you would push that up, and then Heroku as a platform is able to kind of add in all this functionality to build your application, deploy it, handle the CDN steps, handle your Ruby and Rails migrations. And so that was very specific to Ruby on Rails, though. And then Waypoint kind of operates, that's mentally where I put it. And then Waypoint operates in this space where it's handling all of those things for you with the ability to have all these plugins too. So future platforms that haven't been yet released are going, are a potential place that Waypoint could operate and people could develop plugins for, as one example.
Okay, thank you. We have one question in the chat. So Raja Salan is asking, does the build run as a container on the host?
Yes. So what that's doing, right now, so I've installed Waypoint server, and actually, let me show you. So if I do a Docker PS, we're going to see a few things running here. Now I've got Docker desktop running, so you might see a couple other things and some other things from previous demos. You'll see that I've got this Waypoint server running, which is actually handling all of the API requests and scheduling out all of the work that I'm throwing at the API. And then this runner is actually, is doing all of the work for me. So looking at these logs, this is what's handling the builds and the pushes. So that's where all this work is happening from a compute standpoint. And then all of this is on my machine right now. But later, when I install this to Kubernetes and that platform, that's where all of those things are going to be executed with some exceptions. And I can talk about that once we get to that too.
Okay, and there's a follow-up there. So, holy cow, is this like your personal CI/CD with a DSL for multi-cloud app deployment?
Exactly. So if you do want to kind of fix that, you build it, you should only have to do that once. If there are different platforms or architectures that you want to build for, of course, you have to handle those. But it's nice to have that ability to swap out, say, I don't want to deploy to AWS, I want to deploy to GCP, and I want to use Google Cloud Run instead of Lambda or something like that. It makes for stubbing out that functionality quite a bit easier.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. So we can see V2, everything is better with V2. That got kicked off. And this did fail because I didn't have the right credentials. Something that's nice that was added in Waypoint 05 were these, we had statuses and reports, but they were just kind of like a, didn't work, did work kind of UI, UX representation. And now we can actually start to hover over these things and get a little bit more context as to what didn't work. So if something doesn't work, Waypoint's going to do everything it can to let you know why that what happened there as well. So we can see this failed, and we know why. Of course, you realize the reason why as soon as you've pushed the button or initiated the operation. I think that's how that magical law works. But let me know if I got something wrong there. Awesome. So this is going to push up to ECR, and then we're actually going to start to see some things happen. Now, once these items have been pushed, what's nice about Waypoint is that it has a service called Horizon. And what Horizon is kind of like if you've ever used something like ngrok and like a reverse proxy to show your deployments and your applications to people. That's similar to how Waypoint operates. Now, because I'm on my local machine, I don't have that functionality with this kind of deployment. It's not going to share publicly my machine or those ports, which is like thank goodness. That would be quite a bit of trouble, especially for people that don't know that something like that could happen. So when you deploy to a public platform, though, that's when, and it's publicly routable, then you get that feature add and that capability. So once this actually gets pushed up and deployed onto Lambda, we're going to see a release URL, and we'll actually be able to see our deployment URLs too. Because this is Lambda, there's no way to route to that without having that ALB and like setting up many ALBs. So there is just the one, which is handled in this release step, but we will see all those deployments, but they won't have those, like if we click this link, it's not going to go anywhere currently.
All right, got it.
Cool. So we have our deployment. We can see our status is unknown because it just takes some time to evaluate that status. And then finally, once that's released, we can actually click on that. I have noticed that there are some cold starts with this too, so it might take just a second to actually get traffic loaded in there, but no stranger to that kind of outcome or operation.
Available. There you go.
Like, yes. Okay. Here we go. Drum roll, please. Yes. Okay. So yeah, it's going to take a second to load up. And then let me double check what that URL parameter is here. I think it's name, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, name. Yeah, name. Cool. So.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand everything that has actually happened here, maybe we could look at the HCL as we run through this.
Absolutely.
But from this Waypoint HCL file, we've described our application, which has a build step which uses a Docker file and pushes to ECR container registry. Once the build stage is happy and passed, it moves on to the next phase, which is the deployment stage, where it's actually going to create a Lambda function that uses our Docker file. And then there's a final phase of release where it's going to connect the application load balancer to the Lambda function, exposing it to the internet.
Exactly. Correct.
Phew. Okay. Very cool. And I guess, I can add as many use steps to each of those phases as I need to describe my application. Is that correct?
Exactly. What's nice is the ability for all of those plugins. So I'll go over here to the documentation, and we can see that there are quite a few.
Could you zoom in on that, please?
Absolutely. So that should be good. So here in Lambda, we can see all of the items that are supported, all of those different flags or options that we have available to us. So if we wanted to, say, change that tag from latest to actually getting the Git reference, we could go ahead and do that here. And then if you wanted to take a look at like the LB, this is part of core right now, so we don't have that documented, but Lambda, Kubernetes, other things like that are referenced. And then there's different contexts too. If you wanted to say you wanted to, not for Lambda, but for other examples, if you wanted to just use local support for your image, because, if you're running your Waypoint server on your machine, it might not make sense to actually push your image to Docker Hub or any kind of container registry, right? You might just want to test something, or, oh no, I'm operating in stealth mode. I don't want people to know about my secrets. You do have that capability.
And build kit support too, I seen there.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of build kit, so nice. That's awesome.
It's quite nice. I'm excited to see some more work done around like Dockerless builds and things like that. There's some while the team, we just put out 0.5, but already talking about 0.6 and some features on that front. If you do want to take a look at the milestone as things get identified for work for 0.6 and some other minor releases, things like that, definitely worth checking out on GitHub to see what the team is starting to plan and think on that front. It's the more that can be done there, the more that we can kind of help enable these non-root type of containers, I think is always a win.
I can root all the things. What's the problem? What's the worst that could happen, right? Is it easy? I mean, I don't want to say easy. That's a terrible choice of word. But I mean, can anyone write a plugin? Like if they were to kind of sit down and spend a bit of time, it's not terribly complex, I hope.
Absolutely. It's and more than welcome too. If that's something that you're really keen on doing, please feel free to reach out on that front too. I haven't built one yet. I'm looking to do so soon, as well as like use feature flags. And it's unfortunate that we only have the time that we do today to chat. But otherwise I go into so many features. But happy to do that offline. Happy to do that on Twitter or email, whatever, to jump on a Zoom call. But there's things like dynamic configs and using configuration maps or secrets in Kubernetes. And, if that changes, reload your application, live reload it, integrate with Vault so that you don't have to pull those credentials from one source or another, make it a one-time password. There's even though this project is still relatively, new, there's so many things that are it's just chocked full of features and enables quite a many work. So we do see our application is running and working. In interest of time, I'll spare you some changes and things like that, but just because I forgot that first step. But if I wanted to change this to Friday, I could go ahead and do that, push that, and then Waypoint's going to go ahead and if I choose the right browser tab, Waypoint's going to go ahead and load that in, show that build, show that deployment, and then go ahead and release it. Really, really fantastic. The more that gets added to this, I'm really excited to see it start to kind of evolve to match some features within Flux and Argo and make it easier for people to actually load these things up.
Is it possible to have gated releases like that require manual approval of some way?
I've been asked that question a few times. There is one way to do it is you could use GitHub Actions, for example, and then use those gates on whether it be a quality gate, whether it be a manual gate, and then you could actually so Waypoint has the help. So Waypoint has all of these different actions that you can run. Build, release, and deploy can be run separately. So if you wanted to say build it and then like hold off, let me I want to make sure this checksum is okay or whatever it might be. You could actually run those atomically rather than just running up. Up is just kind of like I can't remember what it was in Ruby, but I'll remember it someday. What was it, like DB seed, migrate, all of those things. There was a command that you could just like do everything, and it worked like 5% of the time. But if it did, that was really nice. But yeah, you do have those options available to you. And then that's the way I've seen it done so far, is whether it be whatever CI platform that you have, you could separate that if you wanted.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, that is our first demo. That is GitOps, and quite straightforward to use. I never use the word easy because easy is never easy. Let's just be fair. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and take a look. Oh, I've got some good news. Our EKS cluster has been set up successfully, and looks like that is ready to go. So let's get dangerous here. So, unfortunately, listing my file system might contain some spoilers, but
Yep.
Let's go ahead and move into the kube control demo, and let's talk about what that is. So, in 0.4, we got this capability for. So, let me step back for a second. Waypoint contains the ability to deploy to Kubernetes, but let's say HCL is nice and all; it's pretty straightforward, but let's what if we have some a deployment YAML that we have instead, right? I don't want to have to rewrite all my code. That doesn't make sense, right? The goal is to meet people where they're at when it comes to making these processes easier, right? That's hopefully the goal. So in this example, I've got a pretty straightforward, pretty simple deployment here, and then I'm going to go ahead and be building this Python application. So we can see we've got a requirements text here. The other fun thing about this is that, no, this one's not going to use cloud native build packs. I don't have any demos for that today, but we get to see a Docker file with a little bit more to it, and then we can kind of walk through that Waypoint deploy really quick too. Let me go ahead. At some point in time, I've been talking with the teams about like HCL colorization, tokenization, and support. Right now, we do have Terraform. We do have Terraform, obviously, but when it comes to creating something for HCL, I know there are a couple of VS Code plugins for that, but when it comes to visualizing things, I think the intent is to want to provide a nice Terraform experience, a nice Waypoint experience, and kind of like make that customization something that's a little bit better within VS Code. So if you have any ideas on that front, please feel free to forward them, and I'll get them to the right team members. But that's one of my personal selfish wants is this ability to kind of have this nice like tokenization of waypoints and things like that. Right now, I'm just changing the language for Kubernetes, but fingers crossed we can make this happen. Awesome. So so let's walk through this demo. So Kubernetes apply, like I said, we have this Kubernetes support, but what if we want to use YAML? Waypoint 04 releases capability so that we can actually perform these kube control apply types of operations. So in these examples, we won't actually see that release because we won't have an artifact to look at or to gain, but we will see that final deployment. So let's go ahead and do that. Here, I've specified some labels that I want to add to our deployment.
So that's just an arbitrary assignment, right? You're just making up that name labels. That's nothing special in HCL. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. This is a call out for the application stanza, but like this service environment, all of these are completely subjective. Yeah, we could. Don't tell anyone. We're just gonna push this live.
Could you change labels to just Taylor? Could you call it Taylors?
This one is within the Waypoint's namespacing.
Right, okay.
So this will actually track to the labels object. But yeah, these here are the ones that are a little bit more subjective or non-specific. In this build stanza, we're also going to use Docker, and then we're going to be pushing this to my repository. This is going to use Docker Hub. And again, don't use latest if you can help it for this demo. This should be okay. And then inside of this deploy stanza, you'll see I've kind of fleshed this out with a little bit more information. What this is doing is it's taking a look at the path, and Waypoint does have its own functions, just like Terraform, just like other instantiations of HCL across our products. So we're going to be taking a look at this path, looking in the Kubernetes folder, and then anything with the Kubernetes apply label is what is going to be used. So we could have a whole bunch of YAML, but only specify, the exact pieces that we want to pick out. All right, I'll go ahead and save this. Let's go ahead. So we've worked with Waypoint locally. Let's to the cloud. Let's go to the cloud. I'm going to go ahead and do. Let me update my kube config. We're using that EKS in action repository. So I should be able to, I also do use shorthand. So if you do see me just typing the letter K, it's completely intentional. I've aliased it to kube control. Kubernetes, if you haven't used it, has shorthand as well. So I could write this, which is so much typing, right? It's like a full sentence. So I could just do this, which looks kind of like standoffish. No, the word no, but it gives us the same results. So I'll show you. I've got nothing up my sleeves. I'll get the pods, and we'll see that we've got nothing in our default namespace. How the heck do we get Waypoint installed on Kubernetes? Well, it's pretty simple, straightforward. let's go ahead and install that here. We
No
just
way.
specify that that's all it is. We just switch out the platform. It's that easy.
Where's the complicated find the Helm chart, write the values file, run the template, run the apply? You're just doing it in a
no,
CLI.
no, no regular expressions, no Go template, string templates. I'm really sorry if it's if that's something that you're passionate about. That's you won't find it here today. Awesome. So
Nice.
this will
I'm
take a
starting to
second.
appreciate these helpers a lot more that we're seeing from commands. I know Stellium does this, Waypoint's doing it. We're seeing it more and more, and it's I'm all helmed out, I've got to say. So
Exactly. It's well, well stated, well charted. I've really liked Helm. I like it in terms of package manager and being able to have all these options and that declarativeness when setting everything. I'm a huge fan of the project, though. When it's using it is fantastic, and I think that's the biggest thing that I hear feedback on too. Is that when it comes to writing a Helm chart. Writing a Helm chart it can take a lot depending on what you're going to do, as well as the people that want to create operators and then wrap their operators with the Helm chart. And it's this gargantuan, just crazy feat to put together. But alas.
is there a managed Waypoint server by HashiCorp?
There isn't right now. So Waypoint's 100% open source. So if there's something that you want to see added, please open up an issue for it. It's different in that as projects get to different phases of their life, there's more help needed in certain areas. It might sound obvious, but so like right now, Terraform Core, we've hit Terraform 1.0. So if there's a core functionality or feature, it's probably going to be the HashiCorp internal team that's working on that as an example. So are we looking for a lot of help there? Not really. But when it comes to providers, documentation, some other instantiations of Terraform, that's going to be a lot more helpful and definitely a better use of time. I haven't tried opening anything up on Terraform Core just yet, but yeah, it would just be harder to identify something that's there because it's been so well built out. With Waypoint, though, it's very open. So if there is something that you see or you want to collaborate on, I know there's some like good first issues that are marked in there too. So, but yeah, no managed offering just yet. But who knows what the future brings? I don't have any. I don't think I've found a crystal ball that's been reliable just yet. But who knows? Awesome. So looks like we do have our Waypoint server installed on Kubernetes. Let's go ahead and confirm that that's the case. Let's go ahead and get those pods again. And we can see we've got our server. We have our runner. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and authenticate and jump into that UI. Let me go ahead and close some things out because that would just not be fun to be in the wrong context. All right, so this should look pretty familiar. We've got our projects. We don't have anything instantiated just yet. I'm not going to be using the GitOps workflow with these, so I don't have to go and set any AWS credentials or anything like that. I think in the future, it'll be nice to have when you install this, kind of have it bootstrap itself. And so, I'm curious to see how we start to think through that as the project matures, and how do we bootstrap with Kubernetes authentication? How we bootstrap running in AWS with instance roles or switching policies and things like that, assuming roles and whatnot. Should be an interesting conversation. Let's go ahead and initialize our demo here. What this demo is going to do is kind of show you again how we can get that YAML into our Kubernetes cluster, and then kind of with our Waypoint tinted glasses on. So let's jump in here. We'll see everything's all built out. I'll go ahead and put this to the side, and then I'll do a Waypoint up, and we should be off to the races.
Okay, so while that builds, we got a question from Raja Salanagan. Why do we always have to - accept toss?
So right now, because of that integration with the Horizon service, clear that out. That is the terms. That's the TOS right there. So if you don't accept that, you can work without that Horizon service, but that's explicitly why that TOS is there. And just to make sure, because there's that transference of data and you're linking together these applications in a public space, just want to make sure that people are aware of that. And again, aren't sharing applications that they didn't intend to. And that's kind of the TOS thing that is at the end there, but not you don't have to use that if that doesn't make sense for your team or for your workflows.
Okay, so if you didn't include the flag, would it have prompted you to confirm or accept? Okay, I see you.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So so here I won't be able to click on this today either. For the next two demos, I won't be able to click on that deployment and show off that Horizon feature, just because I don't have a service defined here. I could go ahead and create one, but I don't have one defined here. And then, or never mind, I forgot this one did work. We get our adjective, and that works for me. We get our adjective and our animal, and so we can actually see this service working as we intended. Let me go here and actually change out this code, and I can show you the difference between releases and deployments too. So let's go ahead into the application. I think we're going to want to go again here to templates, and then very cool waypoint. This, we can be more descriptive than this, right, David? Like let's make this.
Presumably smashing.
Ooh, I like that. Awesome. Okay. I like it. Let's ship this. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do a waypoint up, and you can start to see now that we have things like this. This kind of workflow, it makes it really easy, especially if you're hacking on something or trying to get something out. It works well for that kind of workflow. I know I've gotten quite a few demos pushed out this way, and it's just kind of fun to have that feedback loop. That's the goal of Waypoint, is to make a developer's life a lot easier in that respect, rather than have to worry about getting all of these things set up and running and working. You could actually focus on what you're trying to do rather than how to set it up to do the thing. Okay. So let us jump in here, and now we can see that we've got presumably smashing, and then we could use this release to point back and forth. So I don't know if I could jump in here. Yeah, so I can jump back with waypoint release. I'd specify 1, and that would shift it back. So okay. Let me go in here. And then, and that's what it is. We won't get that final, I just had it mixed up. We won't get that final release endpoint just because we don't have that service defined, and that's okay. We don't want to share this with the world. I think there's more that we could add to it. OpenID Connect, some more features, different colors would probably be helpful. So that's our second demo, showing off kube control apply and that plugin and how that works.
Okay, can we try something? I just like
absolutely.
Everything's worked so far, so well done. But let's break it. What's the feedback like if my Docker build fails or my kube control apply fails? Could we maybe just intentionally break the Docker file and the deployment template?
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and do it. So here we could try to. Would you rather? How do you want to break it? Do you want to? We could either blow up the image. We could do like P Ubuntu, like the not so great smelling Ubuntu.
Ubuntu, I like it.
Or just part of a pub sub thing, maybe. I don't know. We'll get somebody in marketing to work on that.
Yeah.
All right. So if we start to build up here. We should see that, so we get that feedback immediately within our CLI, and then here in just a second we should see that build fail, and then we can actually go in and introspect this. What the heck is going on? So we can see Docker login. It's assuming that it must be private because it can't find this anywhere in the public registry, which is good. But yeah, that's the status report kind of functionality that we get to. Let me do that actually. So waypoint status, we can actually start to see that in the CLI. We get that visual representation of it over here in the UI, but we can actually see what's going on. We don't have a deployment status. We don't have that release status because we just failed our build. If we fix that and push that back, then we're going to get, available, looks good, checked, X moments ago. But yeah, that's what that looks like when something fails. And then we do have that helpful context in terms of, go ahead and just run it again so we can see that error. We get that feedback immediately as well.
So if we now fix the image but break the deployment YAML and then run a waypoint up, it's going to do the build, fail the apply, and then if we fix the apply and run a waypoint up, will it skip the build and do the apply?
I think so. It should do the apply. I'm curious to see. Let's go ahead and give that a go. I think that my prediction is that
V1
do you want
beta
me to
1,
give
go
it
for
a
it.
different? Cool,
Should be deprecated,
okay.
right? Oh, beta review. Yeah, why not? Go for it.
So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I think it should break because I think Kubernetes will hand it back. This is Kubernetes 1.21 that we're running too. I did run something earlier locally where I had 1.19 installed, and because it is using my local kube control apply binary, that's where, okay, cool. So we get that feedback there. It was saying that because of the version differences, the cron jobs, and it was basically having an issue with an API version at the end of the day. And so I got that feedback, but it looks like we do get that as well here because that tag doesn't exist. And then we can actually see, let's go to this deployment. And then, yeah, we can actually see via the statuses that that is not what we wanted to see happen, which is nice.
Cool. Okay, let's fix it and run it one more time, and then I'll let you move on to your last demo.
Yeah. All right.
I'm just too curious. That's my problem.
Oh my gosh, that's the best thing. Never stop being curious. It's fun working on these demos too, frankly, because there are so many. I feel like that's the best way. It is as backwards as it sounds. I feel like working on demos and trying to find all these use cases and workflows, to me, is a lot of fun because then you get to find these edge cases and these wild kinds of state and things that come up. When you're working with something in production or like working on a pipeline, I feel like you don't always get that experience because you're so focused on making it work. You are with the demo too, but it's with a demo you can be a little bit more curious and push on it and see if it's got any flex to it. So always fun. Awesome.
Okay, so it still did the build, but it was all cached, so it kind of flew past it, but it worked well.
Awesome. And there we go, just like that. Cool. Any questions on this front? Otherwise, I've got a fun way to cap things off with a final, not quite typical demo for y'all.
No, I think it's all starting to click and it's starting to make a lot more sense in my head. I understand kind of what its responsibilities are, what it's trying to do. It's definitely making progress on my end. So all good. Awesome.
Always a good thing to hear.
Yeah, if I can understand it, everyone can understand it. So
that's always the goal. That's always the goal.
Exactly.
Go ahead and actually jump into this.
Are you familiar with the Dagger project?
Yes. So I haven't gotten to check that out as much as I've wanted to. I really want to. I haven't done a deep dive with it just yet. I've been invited to the repository, and so I've gotten to build it. I've done a couple demos locally, but it definitely something I've got my eye on.
It feels like there's quite a
Dagger,
lot.
So it's cutting edge.
It feels like there's a lot of crossover between what Waypoint and what Dagger are trying to offer. They're both kind of using BuildKit or can use BuildKit. Except this is obviously using HCL and Dagger uses Q, but really cool the way they're both trying to solve this problem. Like this is a real problem that needs some better tooling. So
I agree. It's just too specific. There's no ability for dependency injection or really anything like that for this kind of tooling. So it's like said before, I think that honestly every single company I've worked at except for HashiCorp, they say it more tongue in cheek, but we do things a little bit differently here. Is honestly what I've gotten every time I've been like, can we go over the build system? Can we talk through this? I don't really quite understand how this works, or how do you do this here? So those conversations are I find those really interesting to kind of talk through.
All right, my car alarm's gone off. I'm just going to quickly go turn it off.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, please feel free if you have any questions on these fronts to put them in the chat, and we can get to that. Otherwise, I'll get things kicked off while David handles one alarm and one in IRL status. Like we've seen here, we've got some successful statuses here, but yeah, car alarm is definitely worth getting fixed. So. Our last demo today is going to be something a little bit different. They're like, yay, okay, congrats, congrats, David, on your car.
Sorry about that. I'll just leave you hanging there.
No worries, no worries.
It's your show now.
It's like, yes. It was actually me that did that with the car alarm. So okay, let's get into the next demo, and that is it's going to be a Minecraft server. We're going to go ahead and run that on Kubernetes. We're going to deploy it with Waypoint, and because this image is already defined, we don't want to build it. We kind of just want to shim this together so that we can actually use Waypoint to deploy this. Probably not the most practical example, but it is if you like playing Minecraft and you want to set up a server with one of your favorite tools out there. Am I right? Okay, so let's take a look at how we get this done. Go ahead and do my favorite thing here, and there we go. You won't see things that look too different here. Or you shouldn't see things that look too different here. We've got our labels, we've got our projects, we've got our app stanzas. The real thing that's different here. So right now, it's a requirement within Waypoint. You don't have to have a release stanza, but you do have to have a build and a deploy stanza as a bare minimum. It's we've talked about this I've talked about this with the team in a few different contexts, but it's my hope that these kind of get separated out over time. But Waypoint doesn't work best when you're not using it. All of the pieces of it, you'll get those feature adds, you'll get those benefits, but it does work better together. But if you did just want to build something and use Waypoint to do that, that's something I'd like to see in the future. Personally, selfishly, here we're just going to be pulling down this Docker image here. What Waypoint does, one thing I forgot to mention was when let me actually go back to this. We're seeing all these builds, we're seeing all these logs. Where the heck are they coming from? Waypoint injects an entry point binary into your Docker image when you use Waypoint to build it. So in the example of our Lambda function, it was actually be able to look at the CloudWatch logs and pull those in. And that's the benefit of the entry point, is getting the application logs. That's how we can then evaluate the status. Is it up? Is it down? What's going on? And then that entry point will allow for some neat functionality in the future too. I can only only assume. One also thing to point out is that in this release, Mitchell and the team wrote up the architecture document with, oh my gosh, pictures. This is so helpful to kind of understand, you can read things all day, but like this, when you have this summation, the boxes and the arrows really makes for some good reading.
Boxes and arrows,
it's nice. I think that's what I'm best at drawing. If it's like actual art, terrible. But when it comes to boxes and arrows,
I'm pretty good at stick people.
It makes for good pastime. But if you're interested in the internals and the architecture of Waypoint and really want to understand the deep technical pieces of it, definitely recommend checking out architecture.md in the root of the repository. Lots of time, care, and just chances for illumination on that front. Cool. So apologies before I get too sidetracked. We're going to, so I talked about this. We talked a little bit about entry point. Finally, this deploy step, we've seen this before too. So this is just using the Kubernetes apply. I've got a deployment file and some other YAML items, which you can take a look at right here. So I've got my deployment, a whole bunch of things here. I do update this. I do increase this initial delay seconds because since it is a Minecraft server, it has to generate some assets, and that does take some time. So like David, I was curious, and like, is it different compute? Can I make this any faster? But haven't really been able to find out anything while it's initializing just yet. But if you have some tips or some suggestions on that front, please let me know. I'm all ears on that front. We are defining a service here too, because I'm going to want to connect to this with my local desktop client and specify that load balancer address so that I can connect this. And if anyone out there has Minecraft, Java Minecraft on their machine too, you would be able to join as well. All right, so let's go ahead and kick this off. Let me close out things I don't need. That's always a plus. Okay, so probably getting the hang of this by now. We want to run our waypoints init, and we will see that project instantiate. And drumroll, please. Still waiting on the team to add music sound effects to this, but I don't know if they're going to accept that feature request. Yeah, like, oh yes, okay. I
don't have a drum roll, but I'll work on that for next time.
I got it. We have to keep doing streams because that's the magic right there. Awesome. So we've initialized this, and we are connected to the right Kubernetes cluster. Everything's good. We don't need any authentication details because they're all accounted for. The build is going to be very quick because it's just a Docker pull, and I did run this did run a couple tests on this beforehand, so we have that already instantiated and good to go. Cool. We're not going to, or we should get this release status here in just a little bit, but looks like everything has loaded up just like we wanted. We're not going to have the entry point because we did a Docker pull, so there was no injection into this pod, so we won't get those logs in Waypoint. But at the end of the day, this is really just off-the-wall demo, and that like, let's just get a Minecraft server up and running. So let's go ahead and take a look at the logs.
I guess it could do that with a sidecar injection as well, though, right? As part of the deploy step for when you do use a Docker pull.
That's true. That's true. I do like that, and honestly, I could probably take a look at the how that Docker file is written, and then we could actually just kind of like port that over to be its own Waypoint project or file. Basically put it into the repository. I like this. Yeah, TBD. I'm gonna have to open up an issue for that. That can make for a fun time.
So this is the Minecraft doing the generation thing, right? Okay.
This was a fun demo to work on because of the fact that there was so much going on with it took like, oh my goodness, it was a very frustrating like 30 minutes the first couple of times that I was trying to get this set up because it would keep crashing just before it would like get here. So just like this actually I think it might have crashed here, but let's just go ahead and see. Might have restarted. Yeah, it's always fun. Okay, so yeah, it'll do this. It's
second time's a charm.
Probably about, it's like fingers crossed. I think it's like 5% of the time it doesn't work 100%, but that's okay. That's the stakeholders have deemed that as acceptable for this demo. I'll go ahead and get this loaded up too. I'm using the latest version here. I think I've migrated my account to. I haven't checked out some of the newer Minecraft stuff. In Dungeons, I've heard is a lot of fun, but I got some coworkers that are quite deep into Dungeons, funny enough. But definitely need to check that out later. All right, we'll do this. The music I didn't pipe through, so it might be a little bit loud on my end, but whatever. That makes it more engaging for me. I'll save you from blowing out your eardrums. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and actually get this service. Let me pump this up. All right. And so, that's right. Let's go ahead and close that. I use one-time logins in my terminal, and so I don't have AWS credentials over there. Shoot. But I have them over here, so I'll go ahead and get them here. All right, so this is cool. This is what I want. This is going to be the load balancer that is in front of our Minecraft server. It's all up and running. We check the logs. We're good to go. I'm going to go ahead and pull those logs back up so you can actually see me join into that session. Clear the buffer. And let's do a direct connection. We can see we've got a load balancer from before. Clear that out. Join that server. And then we should see only Dole is my moniker over here. We could actually see that I've joined the game. I can run around. Hopefully this isn't clipping too bad for anyone. I think I've done some streams in the past and it's been like lag. But yeah, we could enhance this. We could add in the ability to like jump and fly. This is just very, very bare bones right now. Not too much functionality added. Pretty static. But we've done it. We could have people all over the world joining our Minecraft server, and we deployed it with Waypoint. Like David said, quite a few many opportunities we could enhance this. We could add entry points. We could even add the configuration map integration with Kubernetes. We could add in some secrets with Vault and kind of make some things shift around and change. And you've got me thinking, David. I might have to let you know when we have a V2 of this demo, because I didn't realize how much more we could actually do with this. That'd be kind of fun. So
Awesome.
That concludes my demos. I'll go ahead and disconnect. You'll see that I just left the game, and that's Waypoint, folks.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. Let me pop us back over here. Yeah, 3 really great demos. Nothing went wrong, annoyingly. Well done. I think each of those demos really helped cement the idea of where Waypoint fits in, what its responsibilities are, and I think that's the best takeaway we can get here. In fact, we got a comment just saying demo is great. It shows how Waypoint is progressing, and I do get it more than when it was first released. Yeah, me too. I was confused. Today, I'm no longer confused. So thank you very much for that. We got another comment from Russell W. I find we do things differently here equals we never read the documentation. Yeah, there's probably a bit of that. So
that's funny.
All right, awesome. So if anyone has any more questions in the chat, you've got about 1 or 2 minutes to get it in. Otherwise, we will be saying goodbye and leaving it there. So what's next for Waypoint? Can you share any juicy gossip with us?
Yeah. So it's one of the fun things too. I used to work at Walt Disney Studios prior to working at HashiCorp, and so it was very difficult to talk about. You can't talk about movies and things that are happening. So I do like being able to work more in open source and being able to talk and kind of share on that front. But so ZeroFile was really focused on this visibility, this governance, this input variables, OpenID Connect, those statuses that I just kind of like very quickly walked through. And so 0.6 is really going to be more focused on platform is the initial thought. So when it comes to making those Kubernetes workflows work better, if you're running on something like ECS or Nomad, that's kind of going to be the more generic drop in that focus is what it's looking like right now. So as we start to like do sprint planning and identify some more things that we want to do, you'll see those things get added to the 0.6 milestone within GitHub. That's the best place to tune in and check things out. I think that there might have been a public board at one point in time, but I'd say milestone's probably the best thing to take a look at. If you're curious on things that are upcoming or things that got kind of pulled down and planned as it moves into those phases. So I'm really excited to see what makes it. As with any release, there's things that get worked on, things that don't make the cut that fall on the cutting room floor. But the good news about that is they don't get put in as DVD extras. They probably just get deferred to a later release or a minor release. So that's always good to know.
Awesome. We have a tongue-in-cheek question from Russell. So which movies are HashiCorp Studios releasing next?
It's I can't talk about that. I can't talk about that. But maybe we could talk with Mitchell and Armand about that. Maybe we want to start up a new studio. It seems like there are a lot of streaming platforms now. Definitely learned some things at previous job with streaming platforms. So I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, I mean Mitchell might be looking for some new things to do now that he's got a bit more time. So maybe HashiCorp Studios is the next venture, right? All right, I don't think we're going to get any more questions. So Taylor, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to say thank you so much for joining us. really, really great demos. They really helped my understanding of Waypoint and others. So thank you for that. And hopefully we get to do something again soon. So have a wonderful day, and I'll speak to you later.
Thank you so much, David. Thanks everybody for joining.
Cheers, bye.